Medical misinformation. Well, those high and mighty doctors are back again, accusing people who ask legitimate questions of spreading misinformation. I thought those days were behind us, but these doctors are still, they're still going strong. And I'm going to share with you a recent webinar. In fact, I'm not going to share the webinar with you because I don't want to do it justice, but I'm going to share the article which was published recently in a major medical publication. Take a look at this. So this was in MedPage Today, webinar, Dr. Mike and Paul Offit on medical misinformation. Should doctors engage with misinformation spreaders? Yes, two big name doctors there. Big name doctors. Dr. Mike, who has a massive social media following. In fact, there was a recent social media post which went viral about him having received over $1 million from pharmaceutical companies. And Dr. Paul Offit, many of us who went through the pandemic know all about Dr. Paul Offit, who was one of the chief architects during the initial pandemic response, including the push for mandates. Now, for the record, I'll be very transparent. I make no judge on the characters of these two doctors insofar as whether they are good people or bad people. Of course, that's a subjective question. I will say that as doctors, I'm very dubious of their advice and total lack of focus on root cause medicine and metabolic health. They are just about as establishment as you can get, totally aligned with the medical industrial complex. But let's learn about what they had to say about misinformation. It's ironic to me that these two doctors would be talking about misinformation. So here we go. Should physicians engage with people who spread misinformation or avoid confrontation? In March of last year, family medicine physician and social media personality Dr. Mike appeared on a show. In fact, that's a really good show. I encourage you all to go to YouTube and watch him debate 20 skeptics of these shots. And then later that year, in 2025, he returned to debate 20 supporters of Health Secretary RFK Jr. So the article and the webinar is really focusing on whether high and mighty doctors like Dr. Mike should even be in the same room as people who disagree with them. Seems a strange thing to even ask. I mean, a doctor should be open to discussion with everyone. But to be fair, Dr. Mike was having discussions with them. Let's read on. Feedback from the medical community was mixed. Of course it was. Some doctors argued that engaging in these debates signals that both sides are equally credible, even when they are not. Dr. Mike countered, saying that bringing people together to discuss issues is a huge win. I think that's fair enough. Credit to him. But what did Paul Offit have to say about things? Meanwhile, expert, of course, he's an expert, Paul Offit, declined invitations to debate the safety of shots from lawyer Aaron Siri. Aaron Siri is actually excellent. I encourage you all to follow his work as well. And from entrepreneur and activist Steve Kirsch, who offered Offit $1 million to participate. In his Substack, Offit wrote, "The safety of shots is a scientific question that should be solved in a scientific venue, not on a debate stage." Well, I actually think that's not only a very arrogant thing to say, but also quite dangerous as well if we're talking about true science, because true science, sadly, has gone so badly off course. And we all know the truth. We saw this during the pandemic. If you are a dissenting voice, if you ask questions, actually, if you look at history, it's those who ask questions and step out of line, they end up being right. When you have this consensus and everybody jumping on board like a medical mob. But what he's actually saying is that he doesn't think that debate about this should be anywhere other than in the scientific community. Do you see the problem with that? So should physicians take the stage with bad actors or avoid them altogether? Join Dr. Mike and Dr. Offit for a candid discussion about how doctors can best respond in the age of misinformation. Do you see the problem right there in that last paragraph? This absolutely cuts to the heart of what's going on and why so many millions of people, in fact, the sensible people of this world, take issue with a lot of what medicine and science says, because right there you have the arrogance. They assume that people who ask questions are bad actors. They assume that people who ask questions are bad people. They use the word misinformation, things that the medical and scientific community doesn't like hearing or things that make them feel uncomfortable. And this is the whole problem. And I've said before, and I'll say again, those same actors who drove the ridiculous, insane pandemic response, who jumped on board with mandates, who wanted to shut down any discussion or dissent when people said, well, what about natural immunity? What about the fact that the strategy doesn't appear to be working? People who receive the shots are still getting infections. All of those people who were so gung-ho, they are all still there. And this gets to a problem that we have within the medical community with the way that doctors think. They are so aligned with the pharmaceutical narrative. They are so on board with one way of thinking, unable to critically think, unable to think outside the box, that it makes me wonder, and it really makes me think that is there much hope for the medical community and scientific community the way things are right now? What will it take to change where we don't have these kind of arrogant discussions, where doctors think that they are high and mighty, certain doctors, not all doctors, and they refuse to engage with legitimate questions, and they call people who ask very good questions bad actors. I had that label at many times during the pandemic. A lot of my content was taken down. Almost all of it was proved right in the end. But this is what we're up against. We have a medical leadership and we have people at the top of medicine. And again, I am not saying anything about their character in terms of them being bad people. I just think their brains work in a way which is not conducive to open science, open medicine. They're arrogant. They don't want to engage in legitimate questions. They refuse to acknowledge very legitimate concerns. But this is what we're dealing with. This is why I always say the best thing you can do is to take your health and well-being in your own hands as much as possible. Don't think or assume that the people at the top of medicine, that their heads are screwed on correctly, because unfortunately, they are not a lot of the time. They are missing very obvious things in front of them, and they are unable to do the one thing which any doctor should do in the spirit of Hippocrates: acknowledge that they don't know everything, that lots of things out there, lots of narratives are wrong, that pharmaceutical products are not the answer for everything. So that's all I've got to say about that. Let me know your thoughts down below. Dr. Mike and Dr. Offit, I would actually really enjoy debating you one day if you're watching. I don't think you are. I would be very cordial. Do you expect anything less from me? Of course, I feel strongly about certain issues, but I would be perfectly cordial. I would be presenting evidence, raising questions, because I do think that the people who lead us in the world of medicine are the wrong people. And I've thought that for some time. Thank you, everybody, again. Do check in the links down below for my website and my MetThrive M5 Natural Insulin Resistance Reversal and Fat Loss Program. Also, our Natural Health and Wellbeing store. Keep going, everyone, on your health journey, and we will speak again very soon.